If you want to learn how to write the perfect product manager resume, but you keep getting rejection after rejection from these tech companies, then keep on watching, I got you. Hey guys, my name is Ianza and I'm currently working as a product manager at Facebook. So welcome back to our channel. On this channel, we talk about how to make money, save money, and invest money. Now, if you want to make all this money, you probably want to land your dream job. And in order to do that, you need to write a good resume. Now, I'm gonna walk you through some of the resumes that I have used to apply to these tech companies. And if you're a fan of this show, you probably have seen a video where I explain how I went from broke and unemployed to ending up landing jobs at places like Booking.com, Microsoft, and Facebook. I will link that up here. Now for this video, I will give you tips on how to write your resume, things that I take into account when wanting to grab the attention of the recruiter, and I'll also walk you through some of the common mistakes that people make when they write product manager resumes. So let's get started. So first things first, you want to restructure your resume in a way that is very clear for the recruiter to read it. Now, these tech companies get thousands and thousands of applications on a daily basis, right? So recruiters only have about 6 seconds to look at your resume and then they're off to the next one. So you need to make sure that you grab their attention, and within those 6 seconds, they need to figure out who you are, why they should even consider you for this application, what your background is like, and yeah, basically learn about you. So one of the things that I like to do is I like to chop off my resume into different sections. So the first section, I put my work experience. So I know a lot of recent graduates put their education at the top because, you know, they paid a lot of money for those college degrees, and they're very happy and excited that they got their degrees. But newsflash, nobody really cares about your degrees. It's basically just a prerequisite, right? Like everybody needs to have some sort of like degree to show that they have like the intelligence to work at these companies, but generally it's not going to be that major differentiator, like the thing that's going to differentiate you from the other person, like your other competitor, right? So what you want to do is you want to put your work experience at the top. So list any jobs that you've had or any internships that you've had that are relevant for the job. Then in the second section, I have my education, which is my bachelor's degree, my master's degree, or any other courses that are relevant. And then I have a last section at the bottom for skills that are relevant to the job. So basically, key takeaway, structure your resume in a way that is clear for the recruiter to parse in those 6 seconds that they're looking at it. So another thing is keep it concise. Nobody wants to read long sentences. Nobody wants to read like a chunky paragraph, right? Like that is very difficult for the recruiter to process in those couple of seconds that they're looking at your resume. So what you want to do instead is use bullet points. And another thing is when you think like, oh, I could say this, or I could say this other thing, I have this other experience. Don't cram it on there. Make sure that your resume is about 1 page. Like you're a recent graduate, or if you're, even if you're a seasoned PM, just put it on 1 page. Like you do not need 2 or 3 pages to explain yourself. And then another tip to keep your resume concise is don't go below 10 points on your font. Because when you go to like 8 points or 9 points, people can barely read it. So you want to make sure that this thing is readable so that people can, the recruiters can process it when they're looking at your resume. So another tip is to keep your experience on your resume relevant to the job that you're applying for. Now, for example, I scooped ice cream in my university years, and I spent about 2 years doing that. But that is not relevant for your product manager position. So don't put that on your resume because it's only going to take up unnecessary space, which you could be using for something else. Now, on my resume, for instance, I did this program called Bold Immersion at Google. And even though that only was 5 days, I would rather put that on my resume than those 2 years that I've been scooping ice cream for. And that's just because it's relevant, right? Recruiters are gonna look at Google and they're gonna say, if Google wanted to pay for her flight and her hotel and wanted to train her for 5 days, then probably we should be considering her. So always make sure that your work experience is relevant. So another thing you want to do is make sure you focus on the impact that you made in your internships or in your work experience. Nobody wants to read that you launched an app, right? Like, they don't understand what that actually means because they don't know the context of the company that you used to work for at that time. And there's actually multiple articles online that show you that when recruiters are scanning through resumes, they focus on metrics and statistics to help them put things into context. So instead, you want to be focusing on saying, for instance, I did X thing, which led to Y outcome. So for instance, I launched an app, which ended up producing 1 million pounds in return on investment in the very first year that it was launched. Like, that helps you put into context how big this thing was that you made, right? Like, how much impact it had on the world. Another thing, for instance, when it comes to metrics and statistics, is mentioning whether you save the company money or not. Like, if you worked on a big project that ended up saving the company either time, resources, or anything else, you want to focus on not only mentioning that, but also attaching a dollar value to that amount that you ended up saving that company money. Because that just helps the recruiters put into context the impact that you made in your previous jobs. So there are a couple of common mistakes that people make when they write their resumes. So one is to add a summary section at the top. Like, I see that quite a lot, especially from people that recently graduated, but again, like I mentioned before, is just another chunk of text that this recruiter has to process, right? I personally would say just delete the whole summary section altogether, because there's nothing that you haven't explained in your work experience or degree section so there's nothing in the summary section that you cannot explain in the degree section or in the work experience section, right? Like, you're just repeating yourself. And if you want to keep things concise, like I mentioned before, and you want to focus on impact, don't add any extra text because it's just a waste. The second thing that I see people doing is, mentioning stuff that they can tackle in their interviews. Like, for instance, you have people that say they have like a skills section and they write, I'm great at communication, or I have great leadership skills. That is something that they can see in your interviews when they actually invite you over. And also, if you write it down, like, that is super subjective, right? Like, you are basically patting yourself on the back, like, I'm great at communication, but you don't have anything to qualify why you're great at communication. And this brings us back to impact, right? You need to explain why something is great. Why was it valuable? So I would say just remove that from your resume. And the last thing is hobbies. So if you're mentioning your hobbies, again, make sure that your hobbies are relevant. Like, nobody cares that you do horse riding on the weekends, Felicia. Nobody cares. So instead, what you want to do is you want to focus on hobbies or side jobs that are relevant. Like, let's say, for instance, that you did a coding boot camp, or you're able to program with Java, or you can do analysis with SQL. That is highly relevant to the job because it shows that you can create sympathy with the software engineers that you'll be working with in that team. So again, there's nothing that I haven't said before. Focus on relevance and impact. So if you want to use the template that I'm sharing in this video, I will link it below in the description box, so you can go and download it for yourself. If you have any other questions about my resume, or you have questions about how you can write the perfect product manager resume, please leave them in the comment section below and I will get to them very soon. If you want to know more about my experience working in tech, I've done a couple of videos, so I will link them up here or somewhere around. You will find them. But yeah, have a look at those as well. And as always, don't forget to like our video, subscribe to our channel, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.